Hey everybody, it's the CCJT Amateur Hour with production values go to die, and boy, production values have been kicking us in the butt today. Anyway, over there, CC.
Over there's JT.
And welcome to the annual ugly sweater Christmas contest. Where I continue to be the perpetual and always winner. Undefeated.
That is not an ugly sweater. I like that sweater.
That's Cubs.
Go Cubs.
Go Cubs.
Go Cubs, go.
But it's like when they licensed for an ugly sweater.
I don't know. I like it.
Yeah.
I think it's cool.
Well, nothing on you is ugly, so I win.
Aww.
Okay. We don't really have a lot to talk about today because we really didn't do anything that we planned. We didn't do anything that we planned because I'm having troubles getting into the Christmas spirit, so that's on me. So
in this house, you're not in the Christmas spirit?
Yeah, you guys should really take a look around. Maybe we'll do a video so you guys can see what Cece has done. She always does a wonderful, wonderful job to just drop the house into a Christmas explosion.
We have a few Christmas trees, a few nutcrackers, a lot of red. I go very red around this time of year. What?
Few.
Well, it depends. Are you counting all those little bottle brush trees?
We're not going to go there.
3, 6, so there's 7, 8 trees right there.
Hundreds.
I like Christmas trees. What can I say?
Okay, so we have the Christmas house. We have the Christmas sweaters. But I don't think
we're missing the Christmas spirit.
Yeah, I'm working on it. But it's kind of slow today. But this is, of course, first and foremost, a writing thing, broadcast, broadcast. So we don't really have too much in the way of business or projects other than what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about, we have begun the expansion onto the 5th platform for our book catalog. Up to now, we've had Amazon, Kobo, and Barnes & Noble, and what am I missing?
Google Play.
Google Play.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're going to start the expansion into Apple. So for those folks that have their own, preferred reading platform, we're doing our best to get our catalog out there.
And the other thing that you've really been working on is the audiobooks on Google Play, I believe. So we're doing the automated narration for the moment. We're a little iffy on how we feel about it, but we're doing it for accessibility issues. As soon as we start earning back some of the money we've spent on publishing these books, then maybe we'll be able to hire actual voice actors to do narration for us. It will be, we do plan to do that in the future. So if you want to buy our books and help us hire some voice actors, that would be awesome.
Yes, please do that. Please do that. I guess the big thing we're going to just talk about, and I don't really see this as being an extremely big podcast, thing.
Maybe. Who knows? We like to talk.
We like to talk, so,
we
like to drink coffee and we like to talk.
Cheers.
Coffee tack. What I wanted to talk about is talk about the space epic, which I've been talking about now for, my God, literally years.
Mm-hmm.
And it came about, from a big spurt of writing energy, and it's grown over to 144,000 words. And what I've done is I've made the editorial decision is to break it into 3 books. And so I've got 2 books, something like 60, 70,000 words kind of, floating in there. And then I've got the 3rd book, which is like at 2,000 words. I really got to get to work on that. But I've learned some things about doing epics. I've learned doing things about doing sequels. And these are things that I wish I could tell my younger writer self, when it came to doing sequels, because I've done 3 sets of sequels. I've done the Emma Parks books, I've done the Tucci books, and I've done the Sheriff in Nevada books. And, and you can hold them up if you want.
That is true, I could.
Yeah.
So
we've got the
Emma Parks. This is a 3-book series, and it's also compiled into a single volume.
Right.
Which should be releasing in January.
Yeah, should be. Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
And then the Tucci Chronicles is actually a duology. It's 2-book series.
Right.
Also a compilation of the 2 books in one, so you can read them separately or you can just buy them all together.
Yep. And just as a quick divergence here, looking at those books and seeing the amount of pages and the amount of words, I wonder if writers ever really get the idea of how many, words they actually write.
These are some...
Yeah, because these things are some doorstops. And it's like...
this one is 400, almost 490 pages. This one, I believe, was around 500.
Yeah, something like that.
Oh, it's about 450, 451.
Yeah. But it's the amount of words that, and it's it's not only what.
And just so, for clarity, you are a sparse writer. You don't go into a lot of verbose descriptions or anything like that. So those words are driving the story, they're driving the characters. They're not a lot of fluff.
Right.
So JT is one of those writers, and I've actually tried to start emulating JT because I tend to be a little on the other direction. But these are a lot of words, but they're a lot of words that matter.
Mm-hmm. And it's like, it's like there's Herman Melville and Moby Dick, which he had to describe everything. And then there's me. So you got the two ends of the scales here.
So you would be like The Old Man and the Sea, Hemingway.
Yeah, Hemingway, yeah.
Yes, so very thin book.
And so my books usually clock in around 70,000 words.
Right.
Which is considered, fairly on the small side for novels, but you know what, it adds up after a while. Mm-hmm. And you should see like my ideas folder, like I got dozens of ideas where I just start, and again, lots more words. But I got away from the epic thing. So writing sequels, I hate writing sequels. Because the first book is always the fun book. The first book is always fun book because it's sort of free form and I'm making things up as I go along and I throw everything in the pot. And then after the pot is all boiling and everything, that's when I start taking things out. Sometimes I don't take anything out and it's just sort of there. And it can be a big collaboration, a mess. And God is my witness, I sometimes don't even know how the books come out together.
You actually get from point A to point B really well for a pantser, maybe a plantser at this point. You do have a good idea. I think you always kind of know where the story is going to end up, generally. Right. I'm not saying you know how you're going to get there. You can see it off in the distance. You just don't know which twists and turns you're going to take.
Lots of twists and turns. And the rule is if I'm writing a book, I want to read. I do not want to write a book which, is just sort of like Snoresville. But again, I'm sort of getting off the track here. So
Space epic.
So sequels.
Yep.
So Emma Parks, the first book was Hope Knocks Twice. The Sheriff of Nevada, the first book was named A Sheriff in Nevada. And the Tucci Chronicles was Love and Death in Ivy West. None of those books I had any plans to write a sequel.
Right.
I planned, especially the Emma Parks book, which is Hope Knocks Twice, because somebody was saying, I'd like a book. And it's like, okay, I'll write your book. So I wrote her a book.
I absolutely adore.
I wrote her a book. So little did I know at the time.
And it's not just me, but other people started saying, hey, I really like this story. Where is it going? And you did leave some things
unresolved.
Yes. So part of that was your fault. But, well, a lot of it was your fault because we enjoyed the book.
Yeah. So it's like, so I'll write the Emma book, and then it's like it ended with a big cliffhanger, and it's like, oh, I gotta write another book. Mm-hmm. And it took a few years, but it got there. Oops.
That was weird.
It turned off.
Okay. Well,
okay, I guess we'll be using yours then.
All right.
Okay. Anyway, the reason is Mike's camera stopped cameraing, and so we're going to be using that camera up there. Okay, so I'm going to stop looking at that one.
Just production values go to die. We do use both of our cell phones when we're recording, just in case something like this happens.
And something like this does happen. And wisely, and if you're listening to the podcast, we're sorry for the interruption. Okay, so
yes.
I eventually got around to the third Emma book. And I finished off the series and tied it with a nice little bow. And I don't ever plan to go back to it again until someone starts making me. The Tootsie books, I did not plan to write a second book at all on that one. That one just.
But I think that one was actually you. You felt like Tucci had more of a story left to tell.
Right.
Because it was a major redemption arc.
Yeah.
And there was a lot going on with the character. That one is very character driven. So I think that was more on you than anybody else.
And then the Sheriff of Nevada books are just an open-ended book, an open-ended series. That one is, I pretty much always plan to do a series on that one. I don't think there will be a compilation on that one because I think I pretty much plan to continue to write that one. I have the third book. I'm sort of stumbling through the third book as I'm writing that one. I've got like 20-something thousand words on that one already, 26,000 words on that one. And and I've got books 4 and 5 in my brain, so I think I'm just going to keep writing that one, just to keep writing, just to have an ongoing series.
And those are actually, I think, your most popular books right now.
Right.
They take place in a fictional Nevada county, but they are very representative of Nevada and some of the people of Nevada. So if you haven't checked them out, you should do that because they're good books.
Especially if you like Nevada. So back to the space epic. So why are we talking about these previous books that were in a series? It's because they're kind of disjointed, to be quite honest. Because I never planned it. Sort of. I guess the corollary for people of a certain age would be the George Lucas, who never planned to make more than one movie. He never planned to make more than one movie, but he didn't. He underestimated the popularity of Star Wars: A New Hope, which was the first one that came out in the 70s. And then, it's like it became such a humongous thing.
That it's still going.
And it's still growing. I get the sense sometimes from looking at the later movies that he was sort of scrambling to find out, fill in the gaps. Empire Strikes Back, was pretty good, but
Actually, that's my favorite of the movies. Yeah. A New Hope was definitely something groundbreaking.
Right.
It's something that, as people of our age, when we went to see it for the first time, it was something that we hadn't seen before. It was based a little bit on the old Flash Gordon serials type of situation, but it was very exciting. And I don't think he thought it would be popular enough to warrant a sequel.
Right, and I don't think, and then what you see here as the result of these is you sort of have these disjointed movies, which, aside from The Empire Strikes Back, but you sort of seem like they're trying to fill in the gap. Another example of that would like be The Matrix, where it was the first Matrix movie, and then the other two were just sort of,
Yes.
And so, I sort of feel
weren't there 4 Matrix movies?
Yeah, there was 4. Yeah, there was 4 total.
Yep.
And boy, that 4th movie. Okay. But getting back to my point is I was sort of in the same boat. I sort of wrote these 3 books, separately. Hope Knocks Twice, Love and Death on I-80 West, and Sheriff of Nevada, and without really thinking about sequels, and it kind of shows, and I get that. And so you sort of, when you're writing a sequel, you not only are you stuck within that universe with that environment, unless you go really outside that area. You kind of have to stick with the same rules of the universe that you've created in the first book, and so you're always having to, like me, you're always having to go back and check, character names and character circumstances, and did this person have blue eyes or an auburn hair, or was it brown eyes and blonde hair, and that, those kind of things that readers pick up. Oh God, yes. let me tell you, readers do pick up that stuff.
Oh yes.
But then I got to writing the space epic, and it became just a humongous thing from a technical point of view, especially the editing. The editing sessions were going on forever and ever and ever. And then, it just struck me one day as, I'm working way too hard on this. I don't need to be working this hard anymore. So I found a logical breakpoint in the book. And like I said, at the 60, 70, 80,000 word point. And so now I have 2 books, and then I have the 3rd book that I'm working on. And it's actually easier that way once I created the bibliography, I want to say, or the...
Kind of like a series Bible.
So kind of like a series Bible where I figure out where the characters first appeared, and, came up with their names and stations and things like that. So it's gotten easier that way. So now all I have to do is kind of write the 3rd book. And then when I think of things that are cool for the 3rd book, then I can go back and I can set them up in books 1 and 2, and I've done that a couple of times. I've created new characters, and I've created a social construct for people to sort of gather the characters to sort of work around. And so while I'm working on this third book, I'm expanding books 1 and 2, which is actually kind of a fascinating exercise. It's kind of interesting. If you have the patience and you have the structure set up, if you're going to do like a three book arc, then I recommend just doing 3 books and not publishing them,
Right.
because you'll always be playing catch up like I do with my other series.
Well, and some people recommend that anyway, at least from a self-publishing standpoint, because then you can release them within a specified period of time. One thing people really hate, I know I do as a reader, is you get to the end of a book, you know there's another book coming, and you have to wait a year, 2 years, who knows how long for the next book.
Hey, Stephen King, how you doing?
But the thing is, with the pre-planned, pre-written, you get them all planned out, you get them all ready to go, then, barring some major hiccups, you can get them out in those time frames. I know somebody I work with is having this problem where she really enjoys a specific book. She keeps going to the author's website, and there was a publication date coming up in 2024, and now the publication date's disappeared.
Yeah.
And she's like, when is this book coming out? So if you do it in advance, the way JT is working on it right now, and you can publish them all in a specified period of time so that you keep the readers happy, basically.
Yeah. But of course, this rule really pretty much applies only to independent writers. Writers who are under contract with the big publishers, they're stuck because they have to generate a book a year. They have to keep generating a book a year.
Based on their contract, I think.
Yeah, based on their contract. And they can't go to the publishing house and say, hey, I want to take a stop here and I just want to write 3 books. And then you'll release them one at a time. And some publishing houses may like that. Some publishing house says, hey, reach a contract, man. And so, and I get that. But being an independent writer, being an independent, self-published writers, we have that flexibility. But what this also means, and I think if you can do math, you sort of picked up is I've got 5 books that are going to be coming out. I've got this three book space epic that's coming out,
right?
And then I've got the 2 Maggie books that I'm working on at the same time, and I'm going back and forth because that way I'm not bored. I'm not bored with the one that I'm writing, but I can see that it's coming where I'm going to be just dropping one of the series and then just focusing on one.
You get to the point where you feel like it's almost ready.
It's almost ready. It's time to get it done and time to get it out there. So it's kind of exciting. It's kind of fun to have these. Well, actually, I did my math wrong, didn't I? I did 6 books.
Yes, you have 6.
Yes, I have 6
You're
books.
not thinking about the 3rd Maggie book because that one's frustrating you.
Yeah, that's it exactly. So we've got these 6 books just sort of floating there, and so maybe someday they'll actually get out there. And the catalog, the 2 more books, that's our production. That's our production company, our publishing house.
Company.
That's our publishing house.
Yep.
We already have a fair size catalog for it sort of creeps up on you when you're an independent writer. You don't realize that. Then one day, you're doing something like publishing to a platform, and you realize, oh my God, look at this, humongous. Less for us anyway. Relatively speaking.
And at this point in time, I have 2 books that I've published. However, as you mentioned, I am working on numerous books, which are in various stages of being done. Some of them I've had a first draft done. Some of them are partially done, and I kind of moved on to something else. But I have at least 2 series, possibly 3, where I could just, once I get the time to sit down and be able to focus on them, I'm going to be writing books like crazy.
And again, we go back to respecting folks that have day jobs that are able to do this. And, and I'm trying to find time for CC to do things because I'm retired, so I'm doing chores through the week, so she doesn't. Don't judge us. Don't judge us. If you've been a long-time follower of this podcast, you know that CC, she's not going to use this word, but I've seen it. She actually loves to do housework, and she loves, to set up the house and work the house. And it's not very 21st century for a self-empowered woman to admit that she loves housework, but you do.
There is some backlash, though, because yes, there is that. I was basically raised to be a wife. I freely admit that. It took me years to figure it out. That's a whole different story. But I think that's one of the reasons I do love doing housework so much. I did it as a kid. It feels like part of me.
Yeah.
So there is a backlash against the whole, feminism, that you shouldn't be focusing on the house so much. But I think, especially in the last few years, people have really gotten back to you want to be in a cozy space.
Right.
So,
But so what I've been trying to do is I've been trying to help with the housework because and I freely admit it, it's not my first thing. It's just the way it is. But I've been doing more and more housework, so it free up time for her creative endeavors. But the reality is her day job just is an energy suck, and it's just the way it is. It's just the way it is. So we're trying to come up with a balance here, so she has more creative time, literary creative time,
right.
and also so it just gives you some free time.
Right. Which I'm not very good at.
Yeah,
Even when I have free time, I find something to do.
Okay. I want to talk one more aspect about the space aspect, which I think is probably known, which has been discussed at length by other people. But as I was working through it, I was realizing something, and I want to talk about about this. And it's not dealing with the 3 books or anything. It's when you're dealing with space epic. Of course, you're dealing with something that's called science fiction, and I was raised on science fiction. I love science fiction, obviously, and I'm one of the generation that can proudly say that we saw Star Trek, the original series, in its first run on NBC. I distinctly remember seeing Star Trek, the original series, on TV when it was first run. So yes, not only am I that old, but I'm also of that certain age.
And it was black and white.
Yeah. So science fiction. But the problem with science fiction is, and this is where it tends to lose readers and viewers and followers, is sometimes the creators get more caught up in the science than the fiction, and there's a difference. Obviously, science is the modifier, but they get caught up in the science. And I'm looking at you, Star Trek: The Next Generation, that really got caught up in the language of the technology, trying to say, hey, look how smart we are. Mm-hmm. And so when they began talking about things like the way that the Enterprise operated, or the way that the space folded upon itself, or coming up with these really interesting ways that time could be warped, I ate that crap up. But at the same time, you have to be somebody like me to eat that crap up, and so you start losing people. So the more that science fiction, and this is just my opinion, of course, more that science fiction focuses on the science and gets away from the fiction part, you start to create a gap between you and some of the potential audience.
Right.
And the part that TNG, the Next Generation, did succeed is when they focused on the people part, the fiction part, mm-hmm. and not so much on the science part.
The characters.
Yeah. When it was character driven instead of science fiction, because I think, mm-hmm. for me, and again, I'm just speaking here, when the episodes were technology driven, you kind of lost things, and if you lost things, then you lost audience. But when you focused on character, pathos and passion and energy and drama, it was a better episode, and it became less science fiction and it became more fiction. And again, this is just me, and maybe this is my soapbox, and maybe this is just me setting up saying that you're not going to see a lot of science in this space epic.
I think you have a good balance going.
I hope I have a good balance for him, but you're not going to see a lot of super science. There's going to be the basic science that I think folks will need to have the general foundation of it, being in space.
The other person I think of, Michael Crichton. Mm. Excellent author, maybe went a little too far into the weeds with the technology and the science, mm-hmm. with some of his writings. So it's like
Jurassic Park the movie versus Jurassic Park the book,
right?
2 totally different creatures, and that's a pun, by the way. So when you get into my space epic, when you do, because you're going to, please, when you get into my space epic, you're going to see some science, but you're not going to see a lot of science, and you're going to see some mechanics. You're not going to see a lot of mechanics. It's going to be more person-driven, and I know that this is going to hang some people up that are going to be looking for the science and the science fiction, but I'm going to remind folks today, and I'm going to remind folks throughout the existence of this 3-book publication, that what you're dealing with is my universe, and in my universe, I make the rules. So if you see something in this book that isn't exactly Isaac Newton-ish, deal with it. Move on.
But this provides you an opportunity, because one of the things that happened with Star Trek was that some of the people who were more scientifically inclined started creating compendiums of information about the science.
Right.
So it allows other people to speculate on, okay, this is a fascinating idea. How would it work?
Yeah.
So you may in the future end up having offshoots where you decide that you want to go back and say, hey, you know, this was kind of fun. This is what I was thinking. This is how it might actually work.
Yep.
And you can put I mean, even with Star Trek, going back to linguistics too, because with science fiction, sometimes there's a lot of language built around different species, different races. And for example, the Klingons are a huge, I didn't realize how huge they were until I actually had this experience in person, where the Klingon language has become such a huge thing. I do Duolingo, and it has Klingon on
Right.
it. That was not the original intention when the original series came out. It was all of that stuff built over time. So you may have one thing in mind, but it may take on a life of its own.
Yeah, and the Klingons in the Star Trek universe are actually a paradox, because they're a warrior race that does not hold technology up as well as it does the warrior spirit. But yet somehow they ended up with warp drive and technology, transported technology, and all of these things that made them the equivalent to the Federation. Yet it doesn't seem right. They are a paradox, and that is the perfect example of how fiction can come into the science. What am I trying to say is they didn't make a lot of sense, but they made it work.
Right.
The Klingons didn't make a lot of sense because they were not a technological species. But the creators and writers of Star Trek made it work. Same deal with my book. It's not going to be super science. It's not going to be a lot of that super science stuff like you would have found in The Martian, the movie, or the book, the movie. But I think my book will work with the science as it's presented, because I don't want to lose readers. Right. I want it to appeal to a broader audience. So I'm not going to put in, the level of technology that you would have found in TNG, you would have found in The Martian, you would have found even in Star Wars. So I'm not going to put that level of technology in there, because I want it to appeal to a broader audience, and that's an editorial decision that I made as the writer.
And it is, as you said, it's your world. Going back to Star Trek, though, I think they realized that in some ways they did turn people off with The Next Generation. So when they started with Deep Space Nine, it not only was more character driven, but it went more political, and it turned into political espionage and intrigue, and people ate that up. Then you go to Enterprise, which, early technology, so it kind of fluctuates back and forth.
It spent a lot of time saying, hey, this is the technology that we're gonna have, kind of thing, and it's
over time it's evolved back and forth.
But actually, in my opinion, and I haven't seen the latest ones, by the way. I haven't seen the two latest series, the animated series or the Captain Pike series. Noting that, I think TNG and DS9 were actually the best of the Star Trek universe. But I don't want to go way away from that. I just want to mention that you as a writer, when you're setting up your world, whether it's a science fiction world, whether it's even a romance, whatever kind it is, you have to determine where is the cutoff for your audience. Who is your audience, and how much detail do you want to put into it in order to keep that audience? And one of those things is the level of technology. The level of technology in the book. Do you want to throw a whole lot in there, the kitchen sink, TNG, The Martian, or do you want to just sort of put the framework there and have it character driven, and that's the direction that I've gone.
And even if you use less technology, less description of the technology, there are people who will fill that in on their own. And that is something like you mentioned earlier, keeping track of the character's eye color and hair color. Maybe you don't even need to mention that. It's like, it depends on what level of description you want to put in your books, and you tend to go light on the real, description of people and places and things.
I kind of want the reader to fill that in. Okay, so we didn't mean for this, or I didn't mean for this to turn into this long one, but it's sort of, I just wanted to sort of explain what was going on with that space epic and how complex and not complex it's going to be at the same time.
Well, and the idea of actually planning out a series in advance versus oh, well, this story needs a continuation type of thing.
Yeah.
So, these books are very good, and you did
completely objective.
No. Well, yes, I am a completely biased person, but I enjoy probably Emma Parks, since this is my series. I enjoy Tucci, but this is more my jam.
Yeah.
And so just comparing the way your process has changed over time is interesting. Plus, who knows, at some point, we may even do a sequel or prequel to this one.
We keep promising to do that, but we've got so many
other
projects right now. So it's okay. Let's go ahead and just wind this up, because we can keep going, and and I'm going to be talking about the space epic a little bit more as time goes by, to see what else I've learned and I've discovered.
Well, actually, why don't we put out there, if you're watching this, and we will obviously be discussing this more in the future, what questions would you have for JT about how this is evolving, how the process is changing, what you're thinking about the amount of technology you're putting in there, those kinds of things. So if you have any thoughts on that, contact us. Maybe in the future we'll answer some questions.
Yeah, it'll give us something to do. We're going to go ahead and wind this up. And again, I win this year's ugly sweater contest.
I disagree. I think this is a great sweater. I've seen much uglier. And mine is...
Well, considering there's only 2 entries in our contest, it's like...
Well, it depends on what you like. If you're a sports fan, Cubbies. You may not be a Cubs fan, but, there are other team sweaters versus vintage Santa Claus,
I like Santa.
This, haha.
Okay, anyway, we need to end this so she can smack me. So, yeah. Domestic violence. We don't need to make light of that.
No, we don't.
So if you want to reach out to us, if you want to contact us, if you want to see other broadcasts, if you want to, see our book catalogs, if you want to have a look at our books, everything is out there at the starting point of our website at www.carsonhume.com. And, have a look, peruse through it. You can learn more about us. You can see our house, obviously. Very Christmassy.
We may do a tour.
Give a tour. And you can see over the TV over here, you can see the angel on top of our... you can see the angel on top of the tree way over there. You can't see the tree, but you can see the angel. So that's something.
The illuminated angel.
The illuminated angel. And maybe we'll do a quick TikTok and just go... So you'll be able to see that too. Okay. Anything else?
Well, next week we will be podcasting on Christmas Eve Day. I don't know if we're going to be, maybe we'll do Christmas memories or something for that podcast. We will also be doing one on New Year's Eve Day.
Right.
And potentially New Year's Day.
Yeah, we'll see.
We may be showing off our new space, our new studio space on New Year's Day. So keep checking in and see what's going on there, because that's something that's coming soon.
Ooh, exciting. Okay, so sitting over there is Cece.
And across from me is JT.
You all have a wonderful, wonderful week. I hope the holiday season is working out for you, and we're hoping that you're taking care of each other and you're taking care of yourselves, mostly taking care of yourselves. So until then, y'all take care now. Bye-bye.
Bye.